I never thought a simple request about a shower would turn my life upside down. But here's the thing, when you live with a roommate, you think you know them. You think boundaries are understood. You think they have your back. You're wrong. I'm 21 years old female and I share a two-bedroom flat with a girl I'll call Sam. She's 22. We've lived together for a little over a year. Before all this, things were fine. We split rent and bills evenly, kept the common areas clean, and were friendly without being close. You know the type of roommate dynamic, it worked. About 6 months ago, Sam started dating this guy. Let's call him Mark, 24 years old. At first, he came over once or twice a week. I didn't think much of it, but within a month, he was practically living with us. He slept over 5 to 6 nights a week, sometimes entire weeks straight. He wasn't on the lease, didn't pay rent, didn't bring groceries, didn't contribute to anything. Nothing. I didn't say anything at first. I didn't want to start drama. I figured it was her business, and as long as he stayed out of my way, it was fine. But then the shower thing started. Mark showers all the time. Twice a day minimum, sometimes more, and every single time he uses my stuff. My shampoo, my conditioner, my face wash, my razor, my deodorant. Yes, I noticed the deodorant. How could I not? It was wet. I thought I was overreacting at first. I mean, it's just shampoo, right? But it wasn't just shampoo. My fancy conditioner costs 15 bucks a bottle, and after 1 week of him staying over, half of it was gone. My razor was dull after 3 days, the one I'd just replaced. And the deodorant, that's just gross. I didn't say anything for a few weeks. I just started moving all my personal care products into my bedroom and carrying them back and forth to the bathroom every time I showered, like I was at a campground. It was ridiculous, but I thought if I made it inconvenient enough, he'd get the hint. He didn't. Then one night I came home from work and found my shampoo bottle in the shower completely empty. I had just bought it 3 days earlier. That was when I decided I had to say something. I brought it up to Sam casually at first. I said, "Hey, I think Mark might be using my shampoo and stuff. Could you ask him to stop, or maybe he could buy his own?" She just shrugged and said he probably didn't realize. Didn't apologize, didn't offer to replace it, just dismissed it. I let it slide again, but it kept happening every day. My stuff kept disappearing faster than I could buy it. I started keeping a mental tally of what I spent, about $40 a month extra on toiletries that I never used myself. 40 bucks I didn't have to waste. Last week I finally had enough. I knocked on Sam's door while Mark was there and said, "I need to talk to both of you." I told them straight. I was not comfortable with Mark showering here constantly, especially since he didn't live here, didn't contribute anything, and used my personal products without asking. I said I'd feel different if he at least bought his own stuff or chipped in for rent or utilities. But as it was, I felt taken advantage of. Mark didn't say a word, he just stared at his phone. Sam got super defensive. She said I was being unreasonable, that he was her guest, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. She said, "It's just shampoo, get over it." I told her it wasn't just the shampoo, it was the principle. He was there 5 nights a week, using our water, our electricity, our Wi-Fi, eating our food, and leaving messes everywhere. And now my personal items too. I said I wanted to set a boundary. He could visit, but he couldn't stay over more than 3 nights a week, and he needed to bring his own toiletries. She got angry, told me I was being controlling, that I was trying to ruin her relationship, that I was a bad friend. I went back to my room and shut the door. I could hear them whispering. That night Mark left, but Sam didn't talk to me for 2 days. I thought maybe things would blow over. But the next morning I went to take a shower and found my bottle of body wash, the one I'd left in my room, not in the bathroom, sitting on the edge of the tub, half full. He'd gone into my room while I was asleep and taken it. That was when everything changed. I knew I wasn't overreacting. This was deliberate. He had crossed a line by entering my private space without permission. I confronted Sam again, this time more forcefully. I said, "Mark went into my room and took my body wash. That's not okay. I want him to stop coming over until we can have a real conversation about boundaries." She flipped out. She started screaming that I was trying to control her, that I hated her happiness, that I was jealous. I didn't scream back. I just said, "If he's in my room again, I'm calling the landlord." And I walked away. The next few days were tense. Mark stayed away for 2 nights, but then he was back, and this time things got worse. I started noticing other things missing, 20 bucks from my wallet on the nightstand, a pair of earrings I'd left on the bathroom counter. Nothing huge, but enough to make me feel unsafe. I couldn't prove it, but I knew. I started locking my bedroom door at all times. I carried my toiletries in a caddy every time I showered. I stopped leaving cash or valuables in common areas. I felt like I was a prisoner in my own home. Then one evening I came home from class to find the bathroom door locked and the shower running. I waited and waited. After 45 minutes, Mark came out, towel around his waist, steam pouring into the hallway. He didn't even acknowledge me, just walked into Sam's room and shut the door. I went into the bathroom. The floor was soaked. My shampoo bottle was empty again, a full bottle I'd bought 2 days ago. And there, sitting on the edge of the sink, was a small plastic baggie with white powder in it. My heart stopped. I didn't touch it. I just stared at it for a long moment. Then I backed out of the bathroom, went to my room, locked the door, and sat on my bed. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just grabbed my phone and started typing a text to my dad. "Can I come stay with you for a few days? Something weird is happening at the apartment." He called me right away. I told him about the baggie. He told me to leave immediately. I packed a bag, grabbed my laptop, my important documents, and my caddy of toiletries. I walked out the front door without saying a word to Sam or Mark. I drove to my dad's house and broke down in his driveway. That's when he told me something I should have realized all along. If he's dealing drugs out of your apartment, you're not safe there, not physically, not legally. I spent the night at my dad's trying to figure out what to do. I called my landlord the next morning and explained the situation. She said she couldn't evict Mark because he wasn't on the lease, but she could talk to Sam. I didn't have much hope for that. That was 2 days ago. I haven't gone back to the apartment. I don't know what I'm going to do. I have classes next week. I have work. My whole life is still there, but I can't go back to that bathroom. I can't go back to feeling like a stranger in my own home. And the worst part, Sam hasn't even texted me once to ask if I'm okay. She just sent one message. When are you coming back? Mark left his hoodie here and he wants it. I typed a reply and deleted it 3 times. Finally, I just wrote, deal with the drugs in your bathroom first. She hasn't responded. I don't know if I'm overreacting. I don't know if I should call the police. I don't know if I'm ever getting my security deposit back. All I know is that I'm 21 years old, I'm hiding in my dad's guest room, and I'm terrified of what happens next. But that's not the only story I have to tell. Because before this nightmare, there was another one, a different kind of betrayal. One that happened behind a coffee counter and involved a wedding, a sister, and a secret I never wanted to keep. I thought I was done with crazy roommates and drug dealers, but life had another story waiting for me, one that started with a cup of coffee and ended with a wedding that almost didn't happen. I'm 17, a junior in high school, working as a barista at a local coffee shop. It's a small place, nothing fancy, but it pays for gas and keeps me out of trouble. My girlfriend, let's call her Jenna, and I have been together for about 8 months. She's sweet, smart, and we get along great. I've met her family a few times, her parents are nice, and her older sister, Claire, is engaged to a guy named Derek. They're supposed to get married in July. I've only met Derek once at a dinner. He seemed fine, quiet, but whatever, not my business. Then one afternoon in early May, everything flipped. I was behind the counter making drinks. It was rush hour, line out the door. My coworker, Mike, nudges me and says, "Yo, look at that couple over by the window. They need a room." I glance over, and I freeze. It's Claire, my girlfriend's sister. She's sitting in the corner booth, full-on making out with some guy who is definitely not Derek. I mean, they're all over each other. Hands and hair, legs tangled, the whole thing. I can see his face. He's probably late 20s, dark hair, stubble. Never seen him before. I duck back behind the espresso machine. My heart is pounding. I don't know what to do. I'm just a kid. I'm not supposed to see this. I keep working, trying to act normal. They finish their drinks after about 20 minutes and leave. I let out a breath. But then 5 minutes later, Claire walks back in. I'm cleaning a table near the door. She sees me. Her eyes go wide. She walks straight up to me, grabs my arm, and says in a low, desperate voice, "You didn't see anything, right? You didn't see anything." I say, "I didn't see anything." She doesn't believe me. She starts shaking. "We need to talk. You can't tell anyone, please. I'll explain everything. Just don't tell Jenna. Don't tell Derek." I tell her I have to get back to work. She leaves, but she's crying now. I feel sick. I get home that evening and my phone is blowing up. Jenna texts, "What's going on with you and my sister?" She's freaking out. She said you guys had some kind of fight at your work. She's really upset. Come over now. I text back, "I can't. My parents won't let me leave." She says, "We'll drive to your house. Just sneak out and meet us." I say, "I can't sneak out. My dad checks on me." She says, "Please, please just tell me what happened." I don't know what Claire told her, but it's clear she spun something. I'm stuck. If I tell Jenna the truth, I blow up her family. If I lie, I'm covering for a cheater. Either way, I'm the bad guy. I called my older brother that night. He's in college. He said, "Dude, you're 17. You don't need to be the secret keeper. Tell Jenna what you saw. It's her sister. She deserves to know." So I did. I called Jenna the next morning. I said, "I need to tell you something, but you're not going to like it." She said, "Just say it." I told her what I saw at the coffee shop. Claire making out with some guy, full on, not just a hug. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Are you sure it was her?" "Positive. I've met her 3 times. It was Claire." She started crying. Not angry crying, just sad. She said, "I knew something was off. She's been acting weird for months. Going out at night, hiding her phone. I didn't want to believe it." I felt awful. But I also felt relieved that it was out there. Then the text started. "Claire found out I told Jenna. She blew up my phone. You ruined my life. You had no right. Derek is my future. You don't know anything." I didn't reply. She kept going. "If you tell anyone else, I'll make your life hell, I swear." I was scared. She's 24. I'm 17. She knows where I work. She knows where my girlfriend lives. I didn't sleep well for a week. Jenna confronted Claire. They had a huge fight. Claire denied everything at first, then admitted she'd been seeing this other guy for a few months. She said she was going to call off the wedding. But then she changed her mind and said she still loved Derek and wanted to marry him, that she would stop seeing the other guy. Jenna told her she needed to tell Derek the truth. Claire refused. She said it would destroy him. She begged Jenna to keep it secret. Jenna came to me crying, saying she didn't know what to do. I said, "It's not our secret to keep. If she's going to marry him, he deserves to know who he's marrying." She agreed, but she was terrified of what it would do to the family. A few days later, Derek found out anyway. I don't know how. Maybe Claire broke down, maybe someone else saw them, but he called off the wedding. Jenna told me her parents were heartbroken. Claire moved out of the house. She blamed me. She told everyone I was a liar, that I made it up because I was jealous of her. I got a message from her on Facebook. "You're a piece of shit. I hope my sister dumps you. You think you're so noble. You're just a kid who doesn't know anything about love." I didn't reply. I just blocked her. Jenna and I stayed together for a few more months, but the drama was too much. Her parents barely looked at me. Claire spread rumors that I was a troublemaker. Eventually, Jenna said she needed space. We broke up in August right before school started. She said it wasn't my fault, but I could tell she resented me for being the messenger. I still think about it sometimes. I did the right thing, I know I did. But it cost me my relationship, and I'll never forget the look on Claire's face when she saw me behind that counter. I'm 18 now, I work at a different coffee shop, I keep my head down, and I never ever get involved in other people's secrets again. But that wasn't the end of my roommate drama. That was just the beginning. After I sent that text about the drugs in the bathroom, Sam finally replied. Not to apologize, not to explain, just a wall of caps. How dare you go through MY stuff? You had no right. Mark has a medical condition. You're a paranoid jerk. I stared at my phone for 5 minutes. A medical condition, right? The kind of medical condition that leaves baggies and a scale in a shared bathroom. I didn't even bother responding. 2 days later, I had to go back to the apartment to get some clothes and my laptop. I figured Sam would be at work, so I timed it. I parked down the street, walked up the stairs, and unlocked the door. The place smelled like cigarette smoke and something chemical. The living room was trashed, empty beer cans, a pizza box, and a hoodie I didn't recognize draped over the couch. I went straight to my room. The door was unlocked, which was weird because I always locked it. I pushed it open and froze. My bed was stripped, my dresser drawers were pulled out, some clothes on the floor. My laptop was gone, my gaming console was gone, even my piggy bank with about $60 in change was missing. I just stood there breathing. I felt like I was going to throw up, then I heard the front door slam. I turned and saw Sam standing in the hallway, arms crossed, her face red. Mark was behind her, leaning against the wall, smirking. He was skinny, pale, with dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Sam said, "You're not supposed to be here." I said, "Where's my laptop?" "We don't know, maybe you misplaced it." "Sam, I'm calling the police." Mark pushed off the wall. "Go ahead, tell them what?" "That your roommate's boyfriend takes long showers. You don't have proof of anything." I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking. I said, "I have photos of the bathroom. I have a picture of the scale and the bags. I'll tell them everything." Mark's eyes went cold. He took a step toward me. "Put the phone down." Sam grabbed his arm. "Mark, stop. It's not worth it." He shook her off. "This little bitch has been snooping around. She thinks she's so smart." I backed up against my bedroom door. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I said, "I'm leaving. I'm going to call the cops right now and I'm going to tell them everything. If my stuff isn't back by tomorrow, I'm pressing charges." Mark laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. "Press charges for what? You let me in, you never said a word. You think anyone's gonna believe you?" I didn't say anything. I just walked past them, out the front door, down the stairs, and got in my car. I locked the doors and drove to my dad's house. I called the non-emergency police line and told them I suspected drug activity in my apartment. They said they'd send someone to do a welfare check, but I needed to come in and file a formal report. I did. I sat in the police station for 2 hours, giving a statement showing the photos I took. The officer was sympathetic but honest. He said without a warrant, they couldn't do much unless there was obvious paraphernalia in plain view. He said they'd talk to Sam and Mark, but it might not lead to anything. That night, I got a text from Sam. "Mark is gone. He took your stuff and he's not coming back. I'm sorry, I didn't know he was dealing. I thought he just had a habit. Please don't hate me." I didn't reply. I was too angry and too tired. The next morning, I went back to the apartment with my dad. We packed all my stuff into garbage bags and boxes. Sam was there, sitting on the couch crying. She kept apologizing. She said Mark had threatened her, said he'd hurt her if she said anything. She said she was scared. I didn't have it in me to forgive her. I just said, "I'm out, you can have the place." I moved into my dad's guest room permanently. I had to break the lease early, which cost me 2 months' rent. My laptop and console were never recovered. I filed a police report for theft, but nothing ever came of it. Mark disappeared. A month later, I got a letter from Sam, handwritten. She said she was in rehab. She said she'd been using too, that Mark was her dealer, and she felt like a piece of shit for letting him destroy our home. She said she was clean now and wanted to pay me back for the rent I lost. I never cashed the check she sent. I don't know why. Maybe because I still felt like I should have seen it earlier. Maybe because I wanted to believe she was trying. But I learned something from that whole mess. When your gut tells you something is off, listen. The endless showers, the missing shampoo, the weird smells, the way he never looked me in the eye. I ignored all of it because I didn't want to be the dramatic roommate, and I almost paid for it with more than just a laptop. I'm 22 now. I live alone in a studio apartment. I don't have roommates anymore. I don't borrow anyone's stuff, and I don't let anyone borrow mine. And every time I walk into a bathroom and see someone else's razor in the shower, I get a chill. Some stories don't have a happy ending, they just have a lesson. And the lesson is, trust your instincts, protect your space, and never co-sign a car for anyone you wouldn't trust with your life. Because sometimes the person asking for help is the one who's hiding the worst kind of trouble. Looking back, I realize how many warning signs I missed. Not just with Sam and Mark, but with Claire and Jenna too. That whole situation had a second act I never told anyone about. A few days after I told Jenna what I saw, Claire started harassing me. She showed up at the coffee shop while I was working a closing shift. I was wiping down the espresso machine when the bell above the door jingled. I looked up and there she was, her eyes red, her hair a mess, holding her phone like a weapon. She walked straight up to the counter and said, "You need to call my sister and tell her you lied." I said, "I'm not lying, I saw you." She slammed her hand on the counter. "You don't know what you saw, you're a kid, you don't understand our relationship." My manager Kevin came out from the back. He's this quiet guy, maybe 50, always wears a flannel. He said, "Ma'am, you need to calm down or I'm calling the police." Claire ignored him. She leaned over the counter and said, "If you tell Derek, I will ruin your life. I'll tell everyone at your school that you touched me. I'll say you tried to kiss me. No one will believe a 17-year-old over me." I felt my stomach drop. I didn't say anything. I just stared at her. Kevin said, "Ma'am, leave now or I'm calling 911." She backed off, but she pointed at me. "This isn't over." She left. I stood there shaking. Kevin asked if I wanted to go home. I said no, I'd finish my shift, but I called Jenna that night and told her everything. I said, "Your sister just threatened me." She said she'd lie and say I assaulted her. Jenna was quiet for a long time, then she said she's scared. "She's not thinking straight." I said, "I don't care, I can't be around her, I can't do this." Jenna started crying. She said her parents were already fighting, Derek was suspicious, and the wedding was on the brink. She begged me to just stay quiet for a few more days. She said Claire would come around. She said she loved me. I said, "I love you too, but I can't pretend I didn't see what I saw." The next day, May 20th, I got a text from Jenna at 7 a.m. Derek knows. Claire told him she made a mistake. He called off the wedding. "My mom is devastated. My dad is blaming me." I didn't know what to say. I just typed, "I'm sorry." She replied, "I need space." That hurt more than I expected. I spent the next 3 days in a fog. I went to school, I worked my shifts, but I felt like I was walking underwater. I kept checking my phone, hoping Jenna would text. She didn't. On May 23rd, I was at home doing homework when my mom came into my room. She said there was a police officer at the door asking for me. My heart almost stopped. I went to the door. A female officer stood there holding a notepad. She asked if I was the one who reported an incident at the coffee shop. I said yes. She said Claire had filed a complaint against me accusing me of harassment and stalking. She said they had to follow up. I said, "That's a lie. She's the one who came to my work and threatened me." The officer nodded. She said there were surveillance cameras in the shop. She'd already spoken to my manager. She told me not to worry, they would not pursue anything, but she wanted to give me a warning. "Stay away from Claire, don't contact her, and if she shows up again, call the police immediately." I thanked her. That night I got a text from an unknown number. It was Claire. "I hope you're happy. You ruined my life. I lost my fiancé, my family hates me, and now I have to move out. I hope your girlfriend dumps you and you die alone." I didn't reply. I blocked the number. The final update came on May 30th. Jenna called me. It was the first time we'd spoken in over a week. Her voice was tired. She said Claire had moved in with a cousin in another state. The wedding was officially called off, the deposits lost. Her parents were talking about therapy. She said, "I'm sorry for how I treated you." "You didn't deserve that." I said, "I just wish it never happened." She said, "Me too." We tried to make it work after that, but the trust was broken. Every time I saw her, I could see her thinking about Claire, about the family drama, about how I was the one who set it all in motion. We broke up in August, like I said. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was just a slow fade. I didn't see Claire again, but I heard from a mutual friend that she got engaged again 2 years later. A different guy. I hope she told him the truth. That experience taught me something about loyalty and truth. Sometimes the right thing costs you everything you care about, but living with a lie, that costs you your soul. I thought I was done with crazy roommates and family secrets, but the universe had one more lesson for me. It came in the form of a certified letter. A year after I moved out of the apartment with Sam, I got a subpoena. Mark had been arrested in a different state for drug trafficking. The prosecutor wanted me to testify about the items I saw in the bathroom, the scale, the bags. They also recovered my laptop from a pawn shop. They asked me to come identify it. I drove 3 hours to the courthouse. It was a gray building with flickering fluorescent lights. I sat in a hallway for 2 hours before they called me. I saw Sam in the waiting room. She looked different, clearer. She was wearing a simple blouse, no makeup, her hair pulled back. She walked over to me. She said, "I'm sorry for everything. I'm in a program now. I've been clean for 8 months. I said, "I'm glad, Sam, really." She said, "Mark is going away for a long time." But a lot of stuff in his car, the police found it all. She paused. "He used my razor too, that's how I got into it. He said it was just a little bit, just to take the edge off." I didn't know what to say, I just nodded. I testified for about 15 minutes. I told the court what I saw, the photos I took, the confrontation. The defense attorney tried to trip me up, asked why I didn't call the police sooner. I said I was scared and naive. He asked if I ever saw Mark use drugs. I said no, but I saw the evidence. The judge allowed it. Mark was convicted. He got 7 years. After the trial, Sam sent me a handwritten letter again. This time there was a check for the full amount I lost from the lease break. She said she had a part-time job now. She said she was paying back everyone she hurt, one person at a time. I cashed that check. I used it to buy a new laptop. It felt like closure. Now, when I look back at that year of my life, I see a chain of events tied together by one thing: people hiding their truth. Sam hid Mark's addiction. I should have known it wasn't over after Sam moved out. I thought the worst was behind me, but Mark didn't just disappear. He showed up at our apartment 2 days after Sam left. It was a Tuesday, around 9 p.m. I was sitting on the couch watching some crime show, trying to decompress after work. Then I heard heavy footsteps on the stairs. Someone pounded on the door. I looked through the peephole and there he was, Mark. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw tight. I didn't open the door. I said through it, "She's not here." He said, "I'm not here for her. I'm here for you." My heart started racing. I said, "You need to leave or I'm calling the police." He laughed. It was this dry, hollow sound. He said, "You already did that, didn't you? Sent your little friend to narc on me. You think you're so clean." "You don't know anything," I said. "I know you used my razor. I know you stole my laptop." He slammed his palm against the door. "That laptop is gone. You're never getting it back. And if you testify against me, I'll make sure you regret it." I didn't answer. I just stood there, my phone in my hand, ready to dial 911. He kept talking, saying how I ruined his life, how Sam was weak, how he would find a way to get even. Then he kicked the bottom of the door hard enough that the frame rattled. I heard him stomp down the stairs and drive off. That night I called my landlord. I told him what happened, that Mark wasn't on the lease and that I felt unsafe. He said he'd file a formal complaint and change the locks. He also said I might have to pay for the lock change if the other tenant didn't agree. I said I didn't care. The next day the locks were changed. My landlord put a notice on Sam's door saying she had 30 days to vacate or face eviction. She never came back to get her stuff. Her mom showed up a week later with a moving truck. She packed everything into boxes while I stood in the hallway, awkwardly apologizing. Her mom just shook her head. He said, "None of this is your fault. Sam made bad choices. She knows that now." I asked if Sam was okay. She said she was in a rehab facility out of state. She said Mark had been arrested for possession with intent to distribute, but he was out on bail. That was the first I heard of the legal stuff. I stayed in that apartment for 3 more months. The lease was up in August and I couldn't afford it alone. My landlord let me break the lease without penalty because of the police report I'd filed. But I still had to pay the remaining rent until he found a new tenant. That was almost $2,000 I didn't have. I moved into a smaller place, a studio in a different part of town. My parents helped with the deposit. I never got my laptop back. I never got a penny for the toiletries or the ruined towels or the stress. I thought that was it. I thought I could just move on, start fresh, never think about Sam or Mark again. But then the subpoena came about a year later, like I said. Driving to that courthouse was surreal. I didn't know what to expect. I wore a collared shirt, tried to look presentable. The prosecutor met me in a small room and went over my statement. She asked if I had any photos of the bathroom. I still had them on my old phone. She copied them. When I walked into the courtroom, I saw Mark for the first time in over a year. He was in a suit, hair combed, but he looked thin, pale. He didn't look at me. Sam was there too, in the back with her mom. She gave me a small nod. I testified about the scale, the bags, the powdery residue on the counter. I told them about the razor, the smell, the way he always carried a backpack. The defense attorney tried to say I was exaggerating, that I had a grudge because of the lease money. I said no, I just wanted the truth to be known. After the trial, I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. I drove home in silence. The letter from Sam came 3 months later. It was handwritten, like I said, but this time it was longer. She wrote about her recovery, her shame, her gratitude that I testified. She said she was working at a bakery now, living in a sober house. She enclosed a check for the full amount of my lease break. She said she had saved up from her job. I cashed it. I used it to buy a new laptop. I also bought a new razor just to replace the one he used. I haven't heard from her since. And that's fine. Some people pass through your life and leave a mark, good or bad. You just have to learn from it. Now, whenever I see someone acting sketchy around a shared space, I speak up. I don't wait. I don't hope it gets better. I say something. Because the longer you let someone take advantage, the more they think they can take everything. That experience taught me something about loyalty and truth. Sometimes the right thing costs you everything you care about, but living with a lie. That costs you your soul. I thought I was done with crazy roommates and family secrets. But the universe had one more lesson for me. It came in the form of a certified letter. A year after I moved out of the apartment with Sam, I got a subpoena. Mark had been arrested in a different state for drug trafficking. The prosecutor wanted me to testify about the items I saw in the bathroom, the scale, the bags. They also recovered my laptop from a pawn shop. They asked me to come identify it. I drove 3 hours to the courthouse. It was a gray building with flickering fluorescent lights. I sat in a hallway for 2 hours before they called me. I saw Sam in the waiting room. She looked different. Clearer, she was wearing a simple blouse, no makeup, her hair pulled back. She walked over to me. She said, "I'm sorry for everything. I'm in a program now. I've been clean for 8 months. I said, "I'm glad, Sam, really." She said, "Mark is going away for a long time. He had a lot of stuff in his car. The police found it all." She paused. "He used my razor too. That's how I got into it. He said it was just a little bit, just to take the edge off." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. I testified for about 15 minutes. I told the court what I saw, the photos I took, the confrontation. The defense attorney tried to trip me up, asked why I didn't call the police sooner. I said I was scared and naive. He asked if I ever saw Mark use drugs. I said no, but I saw the evidence. The judge allowed it. Mark was convicted. He got 7 years. After the trial, Sam sent me a handwritten letter again. This time there was a check for the full amount I lost from the lease break. She said she had a part-time job now. She said she was paying back everyone she hurt, one person at a time. I cashed that check. I used it to buy a new laptop. It felt like closure. Now, when I look back at that year of my life, I see a chain of events tied together by one thing: people hiding their truth. Sam hid Mark's addiction. Her mom hid her shame. Mark hid his entire life behind a curtain of manipulation. And I learned that sometimes the most loyal thing you can do is walk away. I haven't thought about that apartment in a while. But when I read that story about the barista who saw his girlfriend's sister cheating, it all came rushing back. Because I know exactly what it feels like to be caught in someone else's lie. That story hit different for me. I remember being 17. I was a junior in high school working at a coffee shop in a strip mall near my parents' house. It was a generic place: beige walls, sticky tables, the smell of burnt espresso. I worked the closing shift 4 to 10, 3 days a week. Minimum wage, but I got free drinks and tips. My girlfriend at the time was named Rachel. We'd been together for about 8 months. She was 16, a sophomore at a different school. We met through a mutual friend at a house party. She was sweet, kind of shy, always texting me cute messages. Her family was well off. Her dad was a dentist. Her mom stayed home. They lived in a big house with a pool. Her older sister, Claire, was 24. Claire was engaged to a guy named Ethan, who was 26. They'd been together for 4 years. The wedding was set for July. I'd met Ethan a few times at family dinners. He seemed nice, quiet, worked in it. He wore glasses and always brought a bottle of wine for Claire's dad. Claire was different. She was loud, confident, always laughing. She worked as a real estate agent. She drove a white BMW. She had this energy that made you want to be around her. But she also had a sharpness, a way of looking at you that made you feel small. I thought she was great, until that Friday night in May. It was around 7 o'clock. The evening rush had finally died down. I was behind the counter, wiping down the espresso machine, half listening to my coworker Dave complain about his girlfriend. Dave was 22, a college dropout with a man bun and a tattoo of a compass on his forearm. He pointed to a booth near the window. He said, "Dude, those two need to get a room." I looked up. A couple was sitting in the corner booth kissing, not just kissing, full-on making out. The guy had his hand on her thigh under the table. She was leaning into him, her fingers tangled in his hair. They were oblivious. I squinted, then my stomach dropped. It was Claire. She was wearing a red dress. Her hair was down. She was kissing a guy I'd never seen before. He was tall, dark hair, a gold chain around his neck. He looked older, maybe 30. He was not Ethan. I froze. Dave said, "You okay, man?" I said, "Yeah, fine." I ducked behind the counter. I didn't want her to see me. I stayed back there for what felt like an eternity, wiping the same spot on the counter over and over. Dave gave me a weird look but didn't ask again. After about 10 minutes, they got up. The guy put his arm around her waist. They walked out the door laughing. I finally stood up straight. My hands were shaking. Dave said, "You know her." I said, "No, I mean I thought I did, but no." He shrugged and went back to cleaning the pastry case. I thought I'd dodged it. I thought they'd left and that was the end. I came out from behind the counter to bust the booth they'd been sitting in. There was a lipstick stain on the coffee cup. I picked it up, trying not to think about it. Then the door chimed. Claire walked back in. She looked around the empty shop. Her eyes landed on me. She walked straight over to the booth. She stopped about 3 feet away. Her face was pale, but her eyes were hard. She said, "You saw." I said, "Saw what?" "I didn't see anything." She said, "Don't lie to me. I saw you looking. You were staring." I said, "I was working." She stepped closer. Her voice dropped. "You tell anyone about this, and I swear to God I will make your life miserable. You understand me?" I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." She stared at me for a long moment, then she said, "We're not done, we have to talk." She left. The door swung shut behind her. I stood there, holding a dirty coffee cup, my heart hammering in my chest. I finished my shift in a daze. Dave asked if I wanted to grab a drink after work. I said I had to get home. I clocked out at 10, got in my car, and sat there for 5 minutes, gripping the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. It was Rachel. She texted, "Hey, what's going on with you and my sister? She's really upset. She said you two had a weird interaction at your work." I typed, "I don't know what she's talking about." Rachel replied, "She's crying. She wants you to come over. Can you come over?" I said, "My parents won't let me leave the house." She said, "They'll drive to you if you sneak out." I said, "That's not gonna work." She said, "Please just tell me what happened. I'm scared." I didn't know what to do. I drove home. I walked in the door. My mom asked how work was. I said, "Fine." I went to my room and closed the door. I sat on my bed staring at the ceiling. I thought about Ethan. I thought about the wedding in July. I thought about Claire's face, sharp and scared. I thought about Rachel caught in the middle. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Rachel called me. She was crying. She said, "Claire told me you were being weird. She said you were staring at her and her friend at the coffee shop. She said you made her uncomfortable." I said, "Rachel, I didn't do anything." She said, "Then why is she so upset? She's never like this." I said, "I don't know, maybe she's stressed about the wedding." There was a pause. Then Rachel said, "Is that all it was, just stress?" I said, "I think you should ask her." She said, "Why won't you tell me what you saw?" I said, "Because I don't want to be in the middle of this." That was the wrong thing to say. She went silent. Then she said, "So you did see something?" I didn't answer. She said, "You have to tell me." I said, "I can't, not like this. You need to talk to your sister." She hung up. I spent the next 3 days in a fog. Rachel wouldn't text me back. Claire was blowing up my phone with cryptic messages. Things like, "You better keep your mouth shut," and "This isn't what you think," and "I'll tell everyone you tried to hit on me." That last one made my blood run cold. I told my mom I was sick. I stayed home from school. I couldn't focus. I kept replaying that image in my head, Claire's hand on that guy's thigh, her lips on his, the way she laughed when he whispered something in her ear. On Monday, I went back to work. Dave asked where I'd been. I said I had the flu. He didn't push. Around 6 o'clock, the door chimed. I looked up. It was Ethan. He walked in wearing a polo shirt and khakis. He looked tired. He ordered a black coffee. I made it for him. He paid with a 5. Then he said, "You're Rachel's boyfriend, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm Ethan, Claire's fiancé. We met at the barbecue last summer." I said, "I remember." He took a sip of his coffee. Then he said, "Claire told me something strange. She said you made her uncomfortable at the coffee shop the other night. She said you were staring at her." I felt my face go hot. I said, "I wasn't staring." He said, "She said you were. She said it was really weird." I looked at him. He looked genuinely confused. He wasn't accusing me. He was trying to figure something out. I thought about telling him. The words were right there on the tip of my tongue. But I thought about Claire's threat. I thought about Rachel. I thought about the wedding, the dress, the cake, the invitations, all of it built on a lie. I said, "I saw her with a guy. They were kissing at the coffee shop. That's why I was looking." Ethan's face went blank. He said, "What?" I said, "She was with a guy, not you. They were making out in the booth by the window. I saw it." He put the coffee down. His hand was shaking. He said, "You're lying." I said, "I'm not, I swear." He stared at me. Then he said, "Who was it?" I said, "I don't know. I'd never seen him before. Tall, dark hair, gold chain." Ethan closed his eyes. He breathed out slowly. He said, "Jesus Christ." He didn't say anything else. He walked out of the coffee shop. He left his coffee on the counter. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Rachel. She was screaming. She said, "What did you tell Ethan? He just called Claire. She's hysterical. She said you're lying. She said you're trying to ruin her life." I said, "I told him the truth." She said, "You don't know what you saw. You could be wrong." I said, "I'm not wrong, Rachel. She was kissing another guy." She said, "Shut up, just shut up." She hung up. That was the last time I talked to Rachel. The next week, Ethan called off the wedding. Claire moved out of their shared apartment. Her parents took her side for a while. They said I was a jealous teenager, that I was trying to break up the family. But then the other guy's wife found out. Yes, he was married. He had 2 kids. His wife found the text messages on his phone. She called Claire's parents. Suddenly, I was no longer the villain. Rachel never apologized. She never spoke to me again. I heard through mutual friends that she dropped out of school a year later and moved to another state. Claire's wedding was canceled. The deposits were lost. The invitations were thrown away. She moved in with her parents for 6 months. She eventually got a job at a different real estate agency across town. I saw her once about a year later. I was at a grocery store. She was in the produce aisle buying avocados. She saw me. She looked away. I walked past her without saying a word. Ethan sent me a message about 6 months after the breakup. He said thank you. He said he was seeing a therapist. He said he'd dodged a bullet. He said he hoped I was okay. I didn't know how to respond, so I just said, "I hope you're happy." He said, "I'm getting there." I got older. I switched jobs. I went to college. I stopped thinking about Claire and Rachel in that coffee shop. But sometimes on a quiet night, I think about that moment, the decision to tell the truth. I lost my girlfriend. I lost my place in that family. I was called a liar, a troublemaker, a kid who didn't know what he was talking about. But I also saved a man from marrying someone who would have destroyed him. I've never regretted it. Now when I tell people that story, they ask if I'd do it again. And I always say yes, because the truth is a heavy thing to carry. But it's lighter than a lie, always. I carried that lesson with me ever since. But not every story ends with a clean conscience. Sometimes the truth comes out sideways and it takes a while before you realize what you were actually living through. I never thought I'd have to carry my shampoo to the bathroom like I was checking into a hotel. But here I was, 21 years old, living in a 2-bedroom flat with a roommate I'd known for about a year. Her name was Jess. We split rent and bills evenly, and most of the time things were fine. We weren't best friends, but we respected each other's space, or at least I thought we did. Then she started dating this guy, Mark. He was 24, worked at a car dealership, had that kind of slick confidence that some people mistake for charm. At first he came over once or twice a week. That was fine. I barely noticed him. But within a few months he was there constantly. Sleeping over 5, sometimes 6 nights a week. Sometimes full weeks in a row. He wasn't on the lease. He didn't pay rent. He didn't bring groceries. He didn't help with anything. And he showered all the time, not just regular showering. I'm talking twice a day minimum. Sometimes 3 times, and every single time he used my stuff. My shampoo, my conditioner, my face wash, my razor, even my deodorant. I noticed because the bottles were moved, the levels dropped, and my razor was dull after a week. I didn't say anything at first because I thought maybe Jess let him borrow something once. But this was ongoing, every day. I started moving all my toiletries into my bedroom. I carried them back and forth like I was at a campground. It was exhausting. Finally, I brought it up to Jess. I said, "Hey, could you maybe ask Mark to use his own stuff, or at least not use mine?" She just shrugged and said he probably didn't realize. I let it slide, but it kept happening. A week later, I found my razor on the shower floor, hair all over it. I was done. I told Jess directly, "I'm not comfortable with him showering here constantly. He doesn't live here, he doesn't contribute anything, and he uses my stuff. If he bought his own things or chipped in for utilities, I'd feel different." She got defensive. She said I was being dramatic, that Mark was just trying to keep clean, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. I said, "It's not nothing, it's my stuff. My money, my space." She rolled her eyes and walked away. Things got weird after that. I started noticing other things. Mark would disappear into the bathroom for 45 minutes at a time. He'd come out looking jittery, eyes wide, talking fast. He'd leave the bathroom door slightly ajar, and I once saw him leaning over the sink, doing something with his hand. I didn't think much of it at the time, I just thought he was weird. Then one night, I came home early from work. Jess was at her mom's place. Mark was supposed to be at his own apartment, but I heard the shower running. I froze. I didn't want to confront him alone. I went to my room and locked the door. After a few minutes, the shower stopped. I heard him moving around in the bathroom. Then I heard a clatter like something falling. I waited until I heard him leave the bathroom and go into Jess's room. Then I crept out. The bathroom door was open. On the floor behind the toilet was a small black bag. I didn't touch it, but I could see inside. There was a little white powder in a plastic bag, some syringes, a burnt spoon. My stomach dropped. I went back to my room and called my mom. I told her what I saw. She said, "Get out of there now." I didn't leave. I called the landlord instead. I explained the situation. He said he'd come by the next morning. That night, I barely slept. I heard Mark leave around midnight. Jess came home at 2 in the morning. I heard her crying in her room. The next day, the landlord showed up. He talked to Jess first. She denied everything. She said I was making things up. She said I was just jealous of her relationship. I showed the landlord the bag. It was still behind the toilet. He told me to call the police. I didn't want to. I thought maybe I'm overreacting. But then I remembered the syringes. I called. 2 officers came. They searched the bathroom and found the bag. They also found more in Jess's nightstand, hidden in a sock drawer. Mark wasn't there. They arrested Jess for possession with intent to distribute. She was crying, screaming at me, saying I ruined her life. I just stood there. Turns out Mark was a small-time dealer. He'd been using Jess's apartment as a stash house. He'd been showering constantly because he was sweating out the drugs. He'd been using my razor because he didn't want to buy his own. Jess knew. She'd been helping him. I moved out 2 weeks later. I found a new roommate, a quiet girl who worked at a library. Jess's parents bailout her out. She got probation. Mark disappeared. Sometimes I think about that black bag behind the toilet. I think about how close I was to ignoring it, to just moving my shampoo again. But I didn't ignore it, and I don't regret it. I remember standing in front of the judge at Jess's arraignment. Her parents were there, sitting in the front row, shooting daggers at me with their eyes. Jess herself looked small in that orange jumpsuit, her hair greasy, her face blotchy from crying. She wouldn't look at me. I didn't want to be there, but the prosecutor asked me to testify. I said I saw the bag, I saw the syringes, I heard Mark leave late at night. The judge set bail at $10,000. Her dad paid it. After the hearing, he cornered me in the hallway. He was a big guy, red-faced, veins popping in his neck. "You ruined her life," he said. "She was just dating a bad guy. She didn't know." I didn't say anything. What was there to say? She knew. I saw her crying that night. She knew exactly what was in that nightstand. Mark got arrested 3 weeks later. He was pulled over on the interstate with a pound of meth and a handgun. His girlfriend at the time, not Jess, was in the passenger seat. She got charged too. I saw it in the local news. The article mentioned Jess's name as an accomplice, but she took a plea deal. Probation, drug counseling, a fine. She sent me a long text message the day after the plea. It said, "I'm sorry, I was scared of him. I didn't know how to get out. I hate you for what you did, but I also hate myself. I'm going to therapy. I hope you can forgive me someday." I never replied. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. It was small, but it was mine. No roommates, no strange men in my shower, no black bags behind toilets. I bought a new razor. I bought my own shampoo and conditioner and kept them in a caddy that I hung on the shower rod. It felt like a victory. A few months later, I ran into an old coworker. She told me that Jess had dropped out of college and moved back in with her parents. She was working at a fast food place trying to save money. Mark was still in jail, awaiting trial. She said Jess looked exhausted all the time, like she hadn't slept in years. I thought about that text she sent me. I thought about the crying I heard through the wall that night. I don't know if I made the right call calling the police. Part of me wishes I had just knocked on her door and said, "I know what's going on, you need to get out." But I was 21, I was scared. I was tired of carrying my shampoo to the bathroom every day. I don't regret it, because the truth is Mark was a danger. He was using Jess and she was letting him. If I hadn't said something, who knows how far it would have gone. Someone could have gotten hurt. Someone could have died. I tell myself that on the nights when I still feel guilty. Now, when I hear people complain about roommates leaving dishes in the sink, I just smile. I've had worse. I've had a drug dealer using my razor. I've had a roommate who screamed at me while being handcuffed. I've had a father tell me I ruined his daughter's life, and I'm still here. Clean apartment, good job, my own shampoo. That's all I need.